Jaya Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Jam Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Dhamma Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivaradhari Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Bhalava Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Girivaradhari Jashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Jashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotarashata Srimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotarashata Srimad. His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishiguru and Shiguranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summon Bonon, Chapter 48, Krishna pleases his devotees, texts 31 and 32. Text 31. Nahyam majani tirthani na deva mrichila maja te punanti urukalena darshanad eva shadava nahyam majani tirthani na deva mrichila maja te punanti urukalena darshanad eva shadava nahyam majani tirthani na deva mrichila maja te punanti urukalena darshanad eva shadava. Please chant. nahyam majani tirthani na deva mrichila maja te punantyurukalena darshanad eva shadava nahyam majani tirthani nadeva mrichila maja te punantyurukalena darshanad eva shadava na not he indeed apmayani made of water tirthani holy places na such is not the case devaha deities mrit of earth shila and stone maya made te they punanti purify urukalena after a long time darshanat by being seen eva only sadavaha saints. Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. No one can deny that there are holy places with sacred rivers, or that the demigods appears in deity forms made of earth and stone. But these purify the soul only after a long time, whereas a saintly persons purify just by being seen. Text 32. Sababan sruhridam vaina srejam srejas chikir saja jigyasartham pandavanam gacchashva tvam gaja hwajam. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. You are indeed the best of our friends, so please go to Hastinapura and, as a well-wisher of the Pandavas, find out how they're doing. Purport. The Sanskrit, the imperative, you go, may be rendered by gacchashva or gaccha. In the second of these cases, the word following gaccha, named swa, which is taken in the vocative sense, indicates Krishna addressing Akrura as our own. This is in reference to Lord Krishna's intimate relationship with his uncle. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurube Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Ropa Swami Iti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirveshesha Shunyavadi Pashatyadi Satarine. Vancha Kalpatarubhyasha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. So Krishna is responding to Akrura. We heard yesterday how he addressed Akrura with this very enchanting mood and words. And this is, in one sense, concluding this idea of Krishna's instruction to the world of the importance of association with devotees, the association with advanced devotees, with pure devotees. This type of devotees, the quality of these devotees, he expressed in the previous verse. Exalted souls like you are the true objects of service and the most worshipable authority for those who desire the highest good in life. And he is highlighting the importance of association with these devotees. And he compares that to approaching demigods who are approaching even places of pilgrimage for common man to actually atone for different sinful activities or for obtaining material desires. He compares that type of atonement or purification that happens in comparison to associating with these devotees, with pure devotees, then there's not even a comparison. There's not even a comparison. And today, verses and say that holy places are there with holy rivers. In the waters of the holy rivers, one's sins in general, when becomes purified, becomes washed. It's like taking a bath. And there's major sacred rivers that have been glorified in the scriptures. There is this prayer or mantra that in deity worship we learn to invoke in the waters that are offered to the deities all the sacred rivers. So you have a mudra, and then you touch the water with the mudra, with the tip of your finger, and you invoke these holy rivers. So, what is it? Narmade Sindhuka, no, how's it start? Gange cha Jamune chaiva, Gange cha Jamune chaiva. So Ganga and Jamuna, the first two. Gange cha Jamune chaiva, Godavari, Saraswati. So Ganga, Jamuna, the Godavari, and the Saraswati river. Godavari, Saraswati. Narmade, Sindhu, Kaveri. So the Sindhu, holy river, the Narmada river, and the Kaveri river. So these are all Narmade, Sindhu, Kaveri, Jalesh means Sandininkuru. So these are all powerful holy rivers. We know the Ganga and the Jamuna. And then the Saraswati is not present now. It's sort of coming from the Himalayas in the north of India. Then there is Saraswati. Ganga Jamuna Saraswati. The Godavari is in South India. And I believe the Godavari is the one that is by the place where Lord Chaitanya met with Ramananda Roy. Is this place called Rajmundi. That is a very nice temple and very nice tirtha there. We have the fortune to visit that place with my spiritual master. Then the Godavari, Saraswati, Narmada, I can't remember where that one it is. Narmada, Sindhu, also the Sindhu is the one that divides, that is between Pakistan now, present Pakistan, and India. That's where the word Hindu comes. because the people of that area doesn't pronounce the S. It's a silent. So Sindhu means, sounds like Hindu. So the people who live on the other side of the Sindhu River are the Hindus. So, but the Kaveri is by Srirangam. That's the river that surrounds Srirangam, this holy place, wonderful holy place. So, there is no deny, Krishna says, that there are holy places with sacred rivers. So the sacred rivers purify people. And people goes there, and their presence by the arrangement of the Lord to actually purify sinful persons, to be able to atone. And the demigods also, they're deities of demigods. They're deities of demigods that, especially when you go to India, even here, you go to any Hindu temple. Krishna Archana yesterday was telling our guest who comes sometimes, Bob, that he asked, is this a Hindu temple? And she said, no, this is not a Hindu temple. When you go to the Hindu temples, then you find that there's so many deities of demigods. All the demigods are there, and Krishna is one amongst the demigods. And so does Hindu temples. But this is specifically a Gaudiya Vaishnava temple, in which Krishna is worshipped as supreme. And there is no worship of demigods. So, but there is deities of demigods made of earth or stone. You find that. But Krishna explains here that purification through going to holy places and approaching demigods is after long time, it's lifetimes of this thing. Whereas a saintly person, purified just by being seen, is highlighted in the passions of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya will say that or instruct that just a moment of association with a saintly person, with a pure devotee, it can give you all perfection. Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha. What is it? Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. That a moment, just a moment, a fraction of a second, not even this moment, the Lava Matra means a fraction of a moment. A fraction of a moment of association can give all perfection. That's the conclusion of the Vedas. So that's the power of the saintly person. Now Krishna expresses the same thing in the Bhagavad Gita. He says that, that right after the verse that for those who have obtained the end of all knowledge, after many lives, they surrender to Krishna. Jnanavan man prapadyante. That after many lives, bahunan jammanante, jnanavan man prapadyante. They surrender after many lifetimes of cultivating knowledge. They surrender to Krishna, understanding Krishna, Vasudeva Sarvang Iti, is everything. And then he says, for those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires, or those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires, they surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own nature. So, for less intelligent, that are the actual, because these are followers of the Vedas. These are all followers of the Vedas who worship demigods. So they're considered, when there's a breakdown of the different levels of consciousness in human society, they're not at the bottom. They're, in the middle. But Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes that break. I don't have the quote in this, but in his teachings, he breaks down like that. He says, I'm not, don't take me literally on this one, because I just off my head trying to remember, but the quote is very nice. He say, and the top is the pure devotees, whose consciousness is fully bloom, open. So it's like a flower that is fully manifested. Then after that, there's devotees who are in a bud state, so the flower before opening is, like a flower bud, like that. And that's compared to devotees who are in the sadhana bhakti process. And then after that, there is the worshippers of the demigods. I think they're following that. And below the worship of the demigods, they are those, something that was the ones who worship the material nature. And then down there is the impersonalist. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur puts it like that. And down is Buddhists who don't accept, is this guy atheism in one sense. And then it comes, the uncivilized, So among the civilized, these are the breakdown. So followers of the Vedas worship demigods. But although they're educated in Vedic, culture, their intelligence has been stolen by material desires. So they want to fulfill the material desires, and thus, the Vedas instruct that for those who want to achieve a particular material desire, they can approach a demigod. So with that in mind, they worship the demigods. And therefore, by doing that, it's a very slow process. It's called, in the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, the yoga ladder. So you've been climbing, after lifetimes of following these teachings of the Vedas, these karma kanda teachings of the Vedas, then by exposure of this of the Vedas, then your consciousness little by little becomes elevated. So it takes time. It takes a lot of time. And similarly, the principles of the Vedas is that you do pious activities by, worshiping the demigods and doing sacrifices for the demigods, and you counteract or you atone for your sinful activities that comes out of your material desires and material and sort of materialistic activities. You can avoid that, and you atone for those things. So this is what pious people does, follower of the Vedas. So you go to holy places and you take bath, in very auspicious time to wash your sins. So this is the process. But it is explained that because you're contaminated by materialistic desires, then your washing your sins is like considered compared to the bathing of an elephant. And you go and clean yourself, but then as you come out, you throw dirt again on the top of you. So it doesn't. Srila Rupa Goswami explained that this type of atonements and this type of following of the Vedas and this whole thing doesn't eliminate the seed of material desire. So it naturally pops out again. It doesn't go at that. It just cleans you, but doesn't go at the root that causes the tendency or the propensity for sinful activities. But the Association of Devotees does. The Association of Devotees does. We talked before that Srila Rupa Goswami explained of these 5 most powerful means to eliminate, to destroy the propensity for sense gratification, for actual purification of material desires, which is chanting of the holy names, the Srimad Bhagavatam, worshipping the deities, association with devotees, and living in a holy place. Now, Lord Krishna later he basically says the same thing, addressing a great gathering of sages that happened in Kurukshetra during the solar eclipse in Kurukshetra, that the Lord went with solar or lunar. You remember? Can't remember if it was solar or lunar. But during the auspicious time that everybody, from Dwarka, from Vrindavan, everybody goes to Kurukshetra, to the holy place of Kurukshetra for this auspicious occasion. Either lunar eclipse or solar eclipse, I can't remember. And Krishna addressed this gathering of sages, and in the gathering of sages, he explains the same thing, the same idea. And I read it. It's in chapter 84. See if it was lunar. Yeah, solar eclipse. So all the sages, people from all over the land, kingdoms arrived to Kurukshetra, and then a whole gatherings of sages arrived. Starting with Vyasadev, Narada, Devala, Asita, Vishwamitra, Satananda, Bharadwaj, Gautama, Parshuram, Vashishta, Brigu, Pulatsya, Kashyap. All the sages of the universe, all the great sages of the Bhagavatam, they arrive and they gather in Kurukshetra. And then of course, Krishna and Balaram, the Pandavas, all the great kings, they bow down to the sages and they worship them and properly like that, and then set them all comfortably, and then Krishna addressed them with the following words. Now our lives are indeed successful, for we have obtained life's ultimate goal, the audience of great yoga masters, which even demigods only rarely obtain. How is it that people who are not very austere and who recognize God only in His deity form in the temple can now see you, touch you, inquire from you, bow down to you, worship your feet, and serve you in other ways? So the people who are being referred here are the description of a neophyte devotee, a beginning devotee, which is more or less the level of devotion that many of us are in that, space. The description by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti is that a neophyte devotee sees the deities in the temple, but is not able to fully recognize devotees. So Krishna is asking, how is it that they can see and they can actually acknowledge you and worship you and touch you and serve you? And the explanation that is given by the acharyas is that because of their mercy. Because of their mercy, you're able to actually connect with them. So it's not that the neophyte devotee have the power to actually, the disposition to surrender and to approach a pure devotee. But by the mercy of the pure devotee, they come and allow this to happen. By that mercy. So that's what the acharyas, explain. So now, Krishna said, mere bodies of water are not the real sacred places of pilgrimage, nor are mere images of earth and stone the true worshipable deities. These purify only after a long time, but saintly sages purify one immediately upon seeing. So exactly the same thing, he says, no? Exactly the same thing. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti says something very interesting, that actually, let me read this, let me continue reading and I'll tell you that. Neither the demigods controlling fire, the sun, the moon, and the stars, nor those in charge of earth, water, ether, air, speech, and mind actually remove the sins of their worshippers, who continue to see in terms of dualities. But wise sages destroy one's sins when respectfully served for even a few moments. So even that fraction of a moment, lava matra. And then the famous verse, Krishna says, this is a famous verse that Prabhupada quotes many times. Jasyatma buddhi kunape tridatuke. Swadi kalatradishu bhauma ijyati. Yatirta buddhir shalilena karhichit. Jagyeshu abhigyeshu shaeva gokara. He says, one who identifies himself as the inner body composed of mucus, bile, and air, who assumes his wives and family are permanently his own, who thinks an earthen image or the land of his birth is worshipable, and who sees a place of pilgrimage as merely the water there, but who never identify himself with, feel kinship with, worship, or even visit those who are wise in spiritual truth, such person is no better than a cow or an ass. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti says that this word, Yashyadma Buddhi Kunape, this word Kunape means corpse. It's not even body, it's a corpse. So he described this body as a walking corpse. And Prabhupada sometimes describes it as a bag full of these three elements. Three Dhatuke means this, Kapha, Vaju, and Pitta, which is, bile, mucus, and air. So it's not a very, it's a very bit of a revolving image of having a bag full of that stuff. We remember the story of the liquid beauty, which is revolting in one sense, And so yes, that's a container with all these sort of nasty substances. So to consider the body as the self, and then Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes this thing that also to consider the body of itself and the extension of a body, like wife and children and family members, etc., as your own. And, Prabhupada wonderfully, in one of his purposes, break down how, selfishness becomes extended. So this selfishness gets extended to my family and then my people, my community, like that. So in one sense, the bodily conception of life, the symptom is this groupism type of thing. When sometimes, as devotees, neophyte devotees that were afflicted still by this material conditioning, sometimes we follow or we observe, this situation of people finding comfort in their own kind, their group, groups. So, and then Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, in terms of this Bhauma Ijyadi, that, what is it? Jashyama Bhuhikuna Petriyaduke, Swadi Kalatradishu, Bhauma Ijyadi, that one either sees these images or these deities made of earth or stone, of demigods, basically, images, as worshipable, or if not the images of demigods, then the images or the land of birth, the nationalism type of thing. People have that. So if you think like that, one, especially worshiping the deities of demigods, the principle of worshiping deities is that the deities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are non different than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why is that? Well, because the Personality of Godhead is absolute. So, whatever, any type of anything to do with the Lord is on the absolute plane. So we have nama, we have rupa, we have lila, we have all these different things that are part of the Lord, that are manifestation of the Lord, that have to do with the Lord. They're all on the same plane and none different than Him. That principle is there. So therefore, when we worship the deities, we're worshiping Krishna directly. When we chant the holy names, we associate Him with Krishna directly. There's no difference. But the demigods are not absolute. The demigods are jivas. They're not absolute. So therefore, to worship the deity of the demigod, the name of the demigod is not in the same absolute plane. There's a difference. So therefore, that type of purification is really not very effective. So, seeing like that, and the other one is, Yatirtha Buddhir Salilena Karhichit, that one goes to the places of pilgrimage and we see a body of water. And you ritualistically enter that body of water, and do your ritual there. But if you go for that purpose, just to take bath in that body of water, and completely neglect the opportunity to associate with the saintly persons who reside in the holy places, and just as Krishna says here, hear from them, serve, worship, then you're not better than a cow or an ass. An ass is very stubborn. Actually, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, because cows are favorite of Krishna, this Gokara means asses that are used for the cows. So that's how he put it. Meaning that the asses that carry the hay for the cows, so so he doesn't put the cows in the same level of the asses. The asses are, the mudhas are usually the very unintelligent, stubborn and unintelligent. The classical example that Prabhupada puts is that the ass is so unintelligent that he thinks that his sustenance of giving the morsel of grass by the master is the only means that he have to actually obtain that sort of maintenance. So he works so hard for that morsel of grass that is given by the master, without having the intelligence that if he just look around, his place is full of grass, wherever he turns. So he doesn't need the master to give him a morsel of grass for working, so hard. He can eat grass anywhere in the world, in the land. So that's how unintelligent the ass is. So he have to work so hard for surviving and for existence. So it's the same principle. Krishna is highlighting the same principle that in the Bhagavad Gita, in his talks with Akrura, in his addressing all the sages in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, in the place of pilgrimage of Kurukshetra, the same idea, that highlighting the unique and important, essential principle of association with devotees, to obtain the highest goal of life, the highest good. So, and like I said before, Lord Chaitanya passed that important principle to all of us, but also highlighting even a moment, Lava Matra, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. He said that all the scriptures says this truth, that a moment of association with a pure devotee can give you all perfection. So I stop here. Any comments or questions? Go ahead, JB.
Jai, Hare Krishna, bro. Thank you for your class. So this verse in your class was, based on that, obviously this verse where holy places don't purify as much as holy people, because holy places don't chastise you. Holy people do, so they could correct their behavior, we could see. But there's one book I really appreciate that was written by His Holiness Shiva Ram Swami, and it describes. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
It describes the importance of not just Diksha gurus, but Shitsha gurus. And he was like, sometimes Shitsha gurus are kind of neglected, and we learn from that 11th canto of the Bhagavatam where the Avadut considered anyone his Shitsha guru, including a prostitute. That's how humble he was. And so when we hear probably time after time in a lot of classes and Prabhupada's reports too, this phrase, pure devotee. And when I hear this, I feel like it's probably a great obstacle to devotee association. When you hear the word pure devotee, oh wow, there's no pure devotees around here. Let me go to another. It's kind of simple. Then you go to there's no pure devotee. Am I the only pure devotee in this universe? So anyways, the main the main lesson I keep in mind is where it's described in the Antya Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 5. The first verse describes Lord Chaitanya as a physician. And when we have a disease of the body, the first person we're going to go to is a physician. So Pradyumna Mishra went to Lord Chaitanya. He says, you're the supreme spiritual position. Tell me about Krishna. Lord Chaitanya says, I do not know about Krishna. Go to Ramananda Roy. And he saw that Ramananda Roy looked like he had a lot of faults. And then he says, Lord Chaitanya, are you sure? So Lord Chaitanya essentially said, yes, he's your proper blood type. I'm not your blood type. And so we see this is a practical example that if you have a disease of the blood, the first thing the doctor's going to tell you is that I cannot help you. You need somebody who didn't go to medical school. You need somebody your proper blood type. And there's so many examples. Like the other day we were mentioning a Good Samaritan. If you're falling in the ditch on the side of the road and a Good Samaritan helps you, you're not going to say, you're not a qualified doctor. I need a qualified, you'll take whatever help you get. Same thing, if you're stranded in the ocean, you're not going to wait for the Coast Guard, who's ever around you, you're going to flag them down. You're not going to say, this is a rowboat. You're not a qualified Coast Guard. So my question is that it seems like I think my point was clear. It's an obstacle when we can't appreciate whatever level devotees and whatever help they could give us. Nobody but my guru can help me. And we see, I feel personally for myself, that generally speaking, most of us do not see our guru the majority of the year. And if we don't accept some authority that we respect who could tell us to chill out, then I see that we'll probably get in arguments with everyone. So is this true, or have you found this true, or can you elaborate on some of these points from your realization?
Yeah, for sure. It's what you mentioned is something that we see all the time. This idea of, the scriptures tell us about association with pure devotees. So all these lesser devotees, they're not worth of associating with. They're it's some of the arguments that are made by many of non-ISKCON groups, making a case that all these gurus, we have the pure devotee, certify, and all these madhyamas or kanishtas, you should, you can take that. That's not the association that is being taught in here, and it's a very narrow view of devotee association. Lord Chaitanya has a very expansive view of devotee association, but these type of expressions are very, very narrow. So narrow view is a symptom also of neophyte. When you see some, basically it's almost like a tunnel vision. You only see a particular reality, but you're not able to expand it. Because say there is no doubt of Srila Prabhupada's position as a founder Acharya and the most prominent shiksha, or the prominent shiksha for all of us. There's no doubt, there's no discussion on that. But then, to serve Prabhupada, then how this whole principle that Lord Chaitanya gave us, the Dasa, Dasa, Anudasa, of those who are intimately connected with Krishna. So, if we said, no, we go directly to Prabhupada, but don't do the Dasa, Dasa, Anudasa, then we miss the boat. It's so narrow that we miss that it's important to acknowledge and to serve. Serving Prabhupada means serving each one of us. Appreciating, learning from each one of us. That type of thing. The symptom of, if we allow this neophyte mentality to run without check, then you're always going to have conflict in the community. Indeed, all the conflicts that we have in the community of devotees, comes from that type of mentality. That we basically neglect devotees because we just have a very narrow sort of view. Very narrow view. And then what is the result of that? That we create these groups, this groupism, it's almost the prohibited G word, groupism. Nobody wants to be said, hey, you have this groupism problem. But the fact is that it's a natural symptom of being a neophyte. You get a narrow thing, and you only see, I see reality like this, and those who see similarly, we are, we're the good ones. Is that, my wife usually quotes saying, sometimes devotees say, how do you people do this? You people, meaning like, we do it like this, how you people do it, It's like, what do you mean, you people? We're, it's like, like you're some sort of a foreign, entity like that, So, it's narrow. That's the problem. And we have to step up. we have to at least, even if we are still sort of not past this whole Prakrita Bhakta business, this neophyte program, we have to cultivate the principles, and the principles is we serve devotees, we care for devotees, we care for each other, we support each other, we learn to appreciate, this whole thing. You sometimes bring it into your classes, of acknowledging the good qualities of the devotees and expressing them. We do so little of that, and because of that, we tend not to see the contribution and the devotional expressions of so many devotees. We just don't see it. We have the narrow, the blinders doesn't allow us to see. It's like, you put the horses, the racing horses, you put these things so they cannot see on the side, they just see on the front. So then you go on, like that. But meanwhile, you're just trampling this one, stepping on that one, and that type of thing, missing this other one. So, yeah, we have to step it up. We have to sort of, one thing that I believe is, if we become aware of this sort of symptoms, that are there, I can see it in myself at times, because, when my false ego forced me to react to a particular devotee's, actions or way of, seeing things, and if I react, then I can observe it, and I can say, oh, I'm doing the same thing. I'm judging, or like, acting according to, my reality, you people, that reality, like that type of thing. No. So I have to check on that. I have to be, okay, no, it's just diverse. It's just, different, but with respect. Then I have to try to see, yes, along with that, then where is this devotee's heart is? What is the sincerity? What's, the devotional part? And then I can appreciate, this devotee is attached to Kishore Kishori. Is attached to Srila Prabhupada. It's just like that. Yeah. Krishnarj.
I was reflecting on that point that the demigods in their deity forms made of earth and stone had been commented upon in your class as, the purifying after a very long time, and you had commented, or your specific comment had been that, this is so because they're not on the absolute plane, the demigods. And actually, I was getting a deeper appreciation for the fact that if one's in that very material consciousness and is attempting to worship such forms, and because it's motivated by material, wanting something material, then one can understand that also on the part of the person doing that worship, indeed, it would take a very long time. So I think it really hits home for me that this point of it really being a very dragged out kind of purification.
Yeah, and that also highlights how amazing the service of great personalities like Srila Prabhupada and the great devotees. Like this is what Krishna is saying. That comes to the, to give their association to all these less intelligent neophytes, to demigod worshippers, to materialistic people, and transforming their life, actually, by their actions, by their kindness, then completely changing the course in that people are following. So who we see from people that are in the ditch to worshippers of demigods to impersonalists, when they get that type of association with a pure devotee, they can put in the right place. That's the power. That's what Krishna says. That is incredible. Yeah, it's extraordinary. All right, thank you so much. Garantara Shriman Bhagavatam ki jai.